All right, so we're gonna start the prep section of this video to do our system install. This is not gonna be some high quality production. I put my time and effort into making the kit. I didn't put any time and effort into making these install videos. So it's definitely gonna show you what you need to do. Just don't expect Marvel quality content here. But, so what I do is I start with the dash. We get the A-pillars off first, the dash mids out first before messing with the seat and any of the other panels. And reason for that is if you have your seat out and you're trying to do the driver's side, it's a little bit more of a pain in the neck to do without a seat in. All right, so let's start with the A-pillar. There's two clips. There's one up here and there's one in the middle. Easiest way to do it, you got your rubber gasket. You can pull it all the way off if you want. I just kind of pull back on it, where you can get your finger underneath the plastic for the A-pillar. Just kind of get your finger under there, and then up to the top. A little bit of pressure out, you'll feel it pop. First one pops. Don't want to keep pulling at the top to pop the middle clip, because you'll see it start to kind of bend here. So you kind of want to get your hand down a little bit. You can pull back on it here, and there you go. So now you got your A-pillar popped out, but it's not going to come all the way out because these clips are meant to retain the A-pillar in the event that the side airbag deploys. This doesn't come flying out and poke your eye out. So you got to get these clips out, and I'll show you how to get those clips out a little bit closer here. Okay, so here's a closer look at the A-pillar. This is the passenger side. I pulled the passenger one out previous to this video, so I can kind of show you guys what you're looking at here. So there's two clips, the two that I was talking about. This is the top of the A-pillar here. So these clips are meant to, again, hold the A-pillar in place in case the airbag deploys. So this piece does not come out of here unless you do a whole bunch of crap to get it out, which is not fun. So the easiest way to do it is to pop the two retaining clips. So when we look at this clip here, you see these two guys on the sides. These push in. Let's see if I can get up better. Okay, so you see when it pushes in, it pushes this tab in here. There we go. Let's try that. So as you push in, it pushes that tab in. So basically, both of these need to be pressed in order for this to come out of the body of the car. It's not super hard, but it's also not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's definitely doable. I'm not recommending anybody do this, but in the event that this drives you nuts and you don't want to screw with it, if you don't care about this A-pillar basically becoming a projectile if your airbag ever deploys, in theory, you can cut this part of the plastic out, basically leaving these two clips here, cutting this out, because these clips are actually what retain the A-pillar, not the whole thing. So if we shove this back in, this is sure as hell hard to do with one hand. Come on. There we go. All right. So this is what it looks like when it's actually installed and clipped into the vehicle. All this extra basically just retains the A-pillar. And again, I don't recommend you do that, but I have seen other people do it, and I know it does still work because you're still keeping the portion of the clip, this and this, that actually lock into the A-pillar and retain it, and then lock into the body of the car. So again, not what I would do, but if you're in a pinch and it drives you nuts, you can do that. So when we come back over here, now we got the pillar out, we can kind of see a little bit better. It is still kind of hard to see, but you can see where the clip goes into the body of the car here, and then that other guy way down here. So we're gonna have to pop those out. And what I normally do is small flathead screwdriver. This is something that comes in pretty handy for something like this. Let's see if I can get in closer here. Bingo. All right. So you can see on the very top of the clip here, that is one, and then down at the bottom is number two. So what I like to do is pull down on the A-pillar. Pull down on the A-pillar so you can get to that top clip. I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but we'll give it a shot. All right, let's see here. Yeah, okay. All right, let's see if we can pop that. And you're gonna have to push down on it and you'll hear a little click. There we go. So pushing down on it, it popped the top out. It does help a little to keep a little bit of pressure by holding the A-pillar, because that's going to help it pop out. You don't want to keep yanking and fully pull on it, but enough to where when you release the clip, there's enough pressure to pop it out. So once we get that one out, we can get the bottom one. The bottom one, I come up from behind the airbag and then up to the clip this way. Again, if you're keeping some pressure on it, it helps to kind of pop that clip out. I know I'm not going to be able to do that with one hand, so that's basically what you would have to do there. Okay, so again, once we get that pop back and we get that top clip, if we go here, this is basically the A-pillar outer area. You can get your finger underneath the airbag a bit and you can see that clip, and you can see that little plastic edge there. I don't know if I can catch this, but we'll give it a shot here. Let's see. I've never tried to do this with one hand before. Oh, sick. Let's see. I think I've got it. Oh, dope. Okay, well, if I can get it with one hand, you can get it with two. So that ain't too bad. All right, and then we'll just get that bottom one, basically do the same thing. Pop them both out, and then you'll get your A-pillar out. Okay, so once we got our A-pillar loose, it does still secure down at the bottom where it meets the dash grill. So all you want to do is grab on the A-pillar and basically pull up in the same direction as the actual body of the car, and that'll slide it up out. There we go. Oh, let's make sure the clip doesn't get stuck. All right, and then we can just lay it across the dash, and we do have our clip down here for the factory tweeter plug. We just released that guy, and we can pull it out. Let's see if I can do this. Cool. All right, and there we go. All right, dash mid-range. So I'm on the passenger side right now. Passenger side and driver side are identical, so it's not really gonna make a difference. Basically, all you'll really need is I use a 1/4 inch ratchet and a 10 mil socket up here because you don't have a lot of clearance. So try to use something kind of small that'll get in there. And then I'm trying to do this with the minimal amount of tools, basically treating it like if I was doing this in my garage at home and I didn't have access to a bunch of tools. So the same little flathead that we use to pop the clips for the A-pillar, I'm going to use that to pop these grills. Ideally, if you have a panel pry tool, something like this guy here, this would be the better thing to use, but you can definitely do it with that flathead. So there's two clips. There's basically one around here and one around here that pop this grill out. You can do this from the side once you get the A-pillar out. So again, I take the A-pillar out first and then we can get the grill out. Normally what people will do is they'll get between the dash and the grill and pry up on that. You don't want to really pry a lot on this because you don't want to start messing up your dash. So you can do it. It's a little harder that way with the little flathead. So if we reach around the edge, we can actually reach in there and grab part of the grill and pop up. And then from there, you can either just slide your finger underneath or use that little flathead just to give you a little bit extra leverage. But pop that grill out and then it slides out towards you. So there's these two little hooks that hook in the back and then two clips in the front. So super easy. You basically don't even need any tools for it, but if you decide to do that, you can use your tools. But we do need a 10 mil to get the mid out. So we got two 10 mils, one here, one here. It does have a Phillips head on it as well. You could probably use a Phillips screwdriver, but again, it's pretty short, so you'd have to use a stubby. And some cars are tighter than others as far as how tight they make the bolts. So I would just use ratchet out of 10 mil. We'll just loosen that up a little bit. Once I get it loose enough to where I can just loosen it with my hand, I just pull the socket off the ratchet, stick it back on, and then just use it as extra grip to twist. And then we pull the mid out, and then there is just this clip here. Just has a little retaining clip on this back end. You just push it down, the clip slides out. And there we go. Mid is out. We're ready to drop our new mid in. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys how to remove the tweeter. The tweeter, out of this whole system, the tweeter is the thing that's probably the least straightforward as far as removal of the panel, removal of the tweeter, and installation of the tweeter. So there's going to be 3 tabs. There's one here, and one here that just kind of have little ears that lock the tweeter in place. So what you kind of want to do is get your hand. You don't want to push super hard, but you just want to get your finger on the grill for the tweeter. So there, so you can kind of apply a little pressure. And then we're going to go from the back, and we're just going to use this little flat head. And we're just going to pry those ears, and you'll kind of hear a little click when it pops out. Same on that side. You don't want to go too crazy because you don't want to bend it. But basically, that pops that tweeter out. So you can see where it has those ears. That's where it locks into these tabs here. So with our new tweeter, this guy here, it is very, very, very similar in size. I mean, if you look at it right now, just like this, we have it sitting in there between the ears, but there is a small little strip of plastic on the ears that stop us from pushing it all the way in. So what you want to do is either take like a small razor blade, or if you have a small cutter. And what you're gonna do is, if I can get this on here and you can see it, there are little ridges right down here. So there's basically 2 on each ear that you just need so you can see this guy right here, that little ridge. You just need to trim them down flush. It doesn't need to be cut super crazy. It's just a little bit to kind of open that up so you can slide it in. It will not affect the way the factory tweeter goes back in later. I've already checked. It's not going to affect anything. It's just a little bit of extra material that's there in the way that we just need to remove. So what I normally do is I just take these cutters here and just kind of go down that and just cut that little lip out. And basically, literally, this is what comes out. So this is the only modification that needs to be done to fit these in there. That is to fit this entire system in the car, basically. So we're just gonna trim that down real quick. If you have a razor blade, of course you can just do it with a razor blade, but I find that this is a little bit quicker. Okay, so we have everything trimmed. We have our tweeter in place right now. Depending on how well you trim that, the tweeter may just stay in like it is now. Most times, the ears, because the ears are slightly opened up, it wants to squeeze back in, and then it kind of pushes the tweeter up. So the way it is right now, we don't have anything really securing the tweeter in place. If you put it in like this, the tweeter is just going to fall out for sure. Even if it's locked in right now, it's still going to come out. There's really no way to put an aftermarket tweeter into a tweeter location like this without going crazy trying to 3D print something in there, which we probably will eventually, but right now we're trying to do this the simple way and still get you a really good product and not have to glue a tweeter in, which is what a lot of people will do. So we're trying to stay away from gluing anything in here, and what we made is super simple. It's basically just a stainless clip that's going to lock the tweeter in place. So right now we have the tweeter in there. If your tweeter doesn't fit all the way in and it's kind of popping out, just use your thumb to hold it down in place a little bit. And what we do is we're going to take this clip, and if you can see, there's a gap here between this panel and this ear. on that back side. So there's a little slot right there. We have a lot of gap because this is the A-pillar and this is the back side of that gloss black portion of the JBL grill. And there's a little slit down here and there's a little slit down here that our clip slides into. So our clip is gonna just go into that gap, and then we're gonna basically fold it right over the tweeter. And what we're gonna do from here is on this end, we're gonna squeeze this clip in and it's gonna drop down and slide between the gap. So we're just gonna do that here. And that's it. And that locks your tweeter in place. It's super solid. It is not gonna go anywhere. It's a very simple solution to hold your tweeter in, again, without doing anything super crazy, gluing, trying to screw things in. This is gonna be the easiest way to hold that in there. I mean, it is not gonna go anywhere. So that is how you install your tweeter into the A-pillar, and this is what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so now we get to the mid-range and tweeter install portion of this, which again is basically straightforward, but what we're gonna do is take our mid-range. We have our plug that guy in. You can take the foam, wrap that up. To me, this is a pretty important part because there's a lot of plastic, as you can hear in there. So the last thing you want is plastic connector flapping around and rattling on things. So we'll go ahead and drop that in. If you look at the mount, the shape, it's taller on one end than the other. That taller end is gonna go towards the windshield. So we'll just drop that in there and we'll get that guy on. We'll get our factory screws. I'll put that guy back in there. And we will take our 10 mil, just hand tighten that down real quick. Okay, and just give it a couple turns just to snug it on there. We don't need it crazy. So that's the mid-range installed. When it comes to the tweeter, there are basically two things we're gonna need to do. So in the kit, you're gonna have this plug with a loop on it. Looks kind of weird. This is basically to complete the circuit on this harness here. So this is the harness that the factory tweeter plugs into, and the way that the JBL system works is from the JBL amplifier, the wiring runs up to this plug, and then it also runs through it and back out to the door speaker. So if you leave this unplugged and you don't complete that circuit, your door speaker will not play. So if for some reason you install this kit and your door speakers aren't working, it's because you missed this step. So all we need to do is just plug this guy in, and that loop will complete the circuit and keep your door speaker playing. And then you can zip tie this up and get it out of the way if you want. Zip tie it up to the harness, and then you're all set there. From here, we're gonna take our A-pillar. Actually, before we do that, we are going to put the dash grill back in. The reason why we put this grill in first, it makes it a lot easier to line the A-pillar up once it's installed. So again, the back has little hooks that slides. You can see where there's slots that it slides into, and then the front clips down. Super easy. And then we take our A-pillar and we are going to plug in our plugs. So we have our two plugs here. Plug that guy in. And from here, we're going to slide that in. You are going to have some excess wire, which is fine. You can just tuck that up behind the A-pillar plastic and it'll be out of the way and won't be a problem. So what we want to do here is, let me move you guys this way. When we get this A-pillar back in, we want to make sure that it slides in and there's no gap between the grill and the A-pillar. If you push it too far in, you'll have a big gap here. There's grooves that it slides into, so you need to make sure that it slides into that groove, and then you don't have a gap. You got a nice clean line. If you have a gap, you got to pull it back out and realign it and slide it back in. And then from there, we basically just clip it back in. So we have the, well, that's actually pretty dark, but we have that hole there, and there's another one down there where these clips go into. So we just make sure that's lined up, and then the panel will clip back in. And that's basically it. And that is your A-pillar installed. If you notice that it went in, but it sits kind of weird, double check your rubber gasket and make sure it is outside of the A-pillar. Sometimes it'll get caught. You just need to pull it out. And that is basically everything. That's your mid-range, your tweeter. We already did our door speakers, and that is installing your entire kit. Now we're gonna move on to the passenger side, get that done, and we're good to go. Now we'll work on the panels. Basically, there's really not a lot to do. I mean, of course, you gotta unbolt the seat. And then as far as panels that need to come out, we have our sill plate here, our kick panel, this side part of the dash, optional, but it's easy to take out, so I pull it out. And then our center B-pillar trim, so basically from here up to where this is, where this line breaks right before the seatbelt, that comes out. And then the rear piece, seat, optional as well, but I pull it out, it's not hard. And this panel would pull back here. And that's basically it for the driver's side. So we'll get started on that, and then we'll work through it. So let's start over here. There's two clips here that hold this panel in. We basically want to just get our hand underneath it. You can use your thumb on this side just to kind of hold it, and just pull and pull. It's not gonna come out because it's locked in under here on this other plastic panel. You can take that panel out if you want. It's not really needed. As long as we can get to here, we're fine. So that saves us having to unscrew things under here just to get this all the way out. So we'll leave that there for now. And then we got these guys. So easiest way to do this is to get your hand underneath, down in this bottom corner. Let's go this way. Here we go. So you can see where the two panels meet each other. You're gonna get your finger under here because there's a little tab right there. So we'll get our hand underneath and pull out. And you hear that release. And then you can just kind of work your hand down. There's nothing else here. And then we're gonna do the same thing there. You can actually just come this side here, pop up, pop up, pop up, and get that out. So, okay, so kick panel. Kick panel, we have a plastic nut in this back corner here. It's basically just hand tightened on, so you can just grab it and twist it and get that guy off. We get that little plastic nut out of there, and what we want to do is pull the panel towards us a little bit to get it off of this stud. So we just want to pull towards you. Now you got this whole back end free. There's two clips, one here and one down here, that hold the kick panel to the body of the car, and they basically go straight into the car. So what we want to do is get our hands in here. These panels are super flimsy. Toyota just didn't spend a lot of money on their interior, so it's very soft. So what you want to do is kind of get your hand in there and get it kind of close to this area and basically push towards the middle of the car. You can grab the top as well and help you pull it out. And that's basically it. And then it comes out. So hopefully you can see two little blue clips. Sometimes they do stick in the car versus staying on the panel. If they do, it's this guy here, and you'll see the two blue clips. And then you can use if you have a panel removal tool, you can pop them out. You can do it with like a little screwdriver too. All right, then onto the side of the dash. So this whole panel here pops out. It's just clips again. So You can, if you got fingernails, you can kind of get your finger in there. Again, I'm trying to do this with the least amount of tools so that somebody's doing this in their garage, they don't have access to the tools we have here, it'll translate a little better. So this is that same little flathead screwdriver that we used. We can get in here between the gap just to get that in there, and then that's it. I mean, it's super loose, so just a little bit of pressure and it'll pop that guy out. And once you get it out, then you can just get your hand in here and pull, and that's it, and it just slides out. So there's these little tabs in the back, so when you go to put it back in, it's gonna slide in first and then clip in. It's not just gonna go and clip straight on. You gotta slide the back in first. So, and that's just to give us access to run the wire up for our tweeter. And that's basically everything on that side of the car. And then we'll go ahead and get the seat out and get the rest of these panels out. Okay, so getting the back seat out is not as hard as you would think. It's literally 2 clips and the whole seat comes right out. You don't have to take it out, but if you want a cleaner wire run, then I recommend pulling it out. Basically, all you gotta do is, there's a clip basically right about here on each side of the seat that just pushes straight down into the body of the car. So you kind of want to get your hand underneath the cushion a little bit, just to kind of give support where the clip is. And then all you're gonna do is get 2 hands under and just give it a sharp pull up towards you. And that basically frees up the seat. You can even just pop the driver's side out, because all we need to do is just run a wire this way. So if you don't want to take the whole thing out, you can literally just pop that one end up. But we'll just get the other side out and get the seat completely out of the way. Okay, so onto the passenger side, we're just gonna do the same thing we did on the driver's side. Your hands underneath and give it a sharp pull up. And that's basically your seat cushion up. If I flip it over, you can see, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but there's these metal hooks on this side and then also on that side. And those guys basically press down. They press down into these plastic clips that are locked into the body of the car, and that's basically. All right, now let's unbolt the driver's seat so we can get to the JBL amp and get to the spot where we're putting most of our system. So we'll slide that guy back. Oh my God, that is bright. So we have Torx bolts, of course, 2 on the front, 2 on the back. They are a Torx 50. So this is what you'll need here, and T50. That basically gets you in there. I use a 3/8 for this because you kind of want something a little bigger. So 3/8 ratchet, 3/8 socket, and it's basically just unbolting a bolt at that point. So we'll pop these out, and then we'll slide her forward and get the back ones out, and we'll get back when the seat's out. Okay, once we got the back seat out, it's gonna be a lot easier to get this panel out. So we gotta get this guy out before we can get the B-pillar panel out. So I'm basically just gonna get in here and we can get underneath, pull up. And that's all you got there. Sometimes some of these clips will get stuck. So let's see if I can flip this over here. So there's these metal clips, they're basically what hold the panel into the body of the car and also hold the weather stripping down to the actual pinch welds. Sometimes they get stuck and you just gotta, yeah, just pop it right out. And then we can put our weather stripping back down. So that's that panel out. And then we got the seat loosened up. So actually, let's just do that now. All right. So the seat is all unbolted. What I like to do is just make sure our recline is all the way forward. And then I usually get the seat to sit at about this spot before I tip it back. We're not taking the seat all the way out. We're just gonna move it back so it's out of the way because we don't really need to take it out. So save yourself the hassle of taking out the whole seat and risk scratching the car. So we'll just slide this guy back. You just wanna be careful because there is a harness that goes up to 3 plugs here. So you just gotta watch that and just be careful. Don't push super far back. but there's definitely enough slack on it right now. We're good. And now we have access under our seat's out of the way, and then we can kind of go from there. And then getting this B-pillar trim out is also not very hard, but what I like to do is pull the weather stripping back. You don't have to take it all the way out, just get up to here. This bottom panel overlaps this top panel, so we want to get to where the brake is and get our hand under there. And then we can kind of pull, you see how it starts to separate, and just pull it out so it pops that top section out there. And then there's some clips down here. It's pretty close with the seat, but you can still pop it out. It's not too bad. So you get your hands underneath that panel and just pull towards you, or sorry, away from you towards the middle of the car. And we'll go around this way. We'll basically do the same thing on this side. We'll pull that weather stripping. And then we'll get up here again to where the brake is, if you can see it. And we'll just pop. And there we go. Bottom, if the bottom came out. Sometimes it's easy to do with the seat tip back, sometimes it's not. Just depends on where your seat's sitting, but that's basically that guy there. And then we can just slide it up and get it out of the way. Okay. Go for the seat belt. And that guy comes out. And now we have all that area to run our wire. We'll just leave our panels there. And then now we can get back here and everything's clear. So we have all of our area open here to run our wires all the way to the back. And we have that guy pulled back there. And then we have space under the seat. So the JBL amp cover, that needs to come off as well. It's just a little clip here and a little clip there. It's kind of flimsy though, because it's just bolted here. There's nothing holding it down here, so it does flap around. It's not bad. It just makes it harder to take the clips out. So you can try and pull up on it, but more than likely, if you try to just pull up on it with one hand, you're not going to pop the clips because you're moving the entire thing. So what you kind of want to do is use both hands, get one hand kind of inside so you can hold the amp a little bit, and then use your other hand to pop the cover off. I don't know if I can. Oh, let's give that a shot here. Yeah, so we got one out, and then now we can kind of hold on to the amp and then get this clip out here. So you can see that clip is here, and then it's got this other weird looking retainer that clips onto this. There, this guy here. So that is our amp cover out. We have access to our amp. And we just got to pull one more panel on the passenger side, and we're basically ready to run wires. Okay, so we're on the passenger side of the car now. Basically, we just got to take this off and that bottom panel there so we can get our tweeter wire ran over from the driver's side up to the A-pillar. So same like the opposite end of the dash. We'll just get our screwdriver under there. Just a little bit of pry just to get one clip out. Again, these clips are super soft, so it doesn't take a whole lot of force at all. Pop that out, pull that panel out. And then down here, again, same like the driver's side. We can see where the panel breaks. We got our hand underneath it. Kind of use your thumb to hold the other side. Pop that out. This side doesn't have a clip holding it under here, so you can just pull towards you. Let's get underneath here. So back up in here, it slides in. So we'll just pull towards us, and that pops that out. It's basically this guy here that slides up into that hole. So we'll just get this out of the way. And that gives us access all the way to the driver's side, so we can run our wire across. And that's everything you need to do on the passenger side. So before we run wires, this is basically an overview of what we needed to do to prep the car to get ready for the wire run. So we had our dash mids come out. We had our A-pillars come out. We had both sides of the end cap on the dash, kick panel, sill plate, B-pillar cover, the rear sill plate, and the back seat come out on the driver's side. Unbolt the seat, tip that back, pull off the amp cover, and just pop this panel and loosen that guy up. And that's everything you need to do to run the wires for this system. It's really super simple. Again, we're just going to run power wire to the back, and we are going to run tweeter wire up to this A-pillar, and then we're going to go up and through that side across the dash into the passenger A-pillar. This is the level 1 system, so we're not doing any sub, but if we were, we're just running an additional harness to the rear, so there's really not a lot different to it. So we're basically prepped, ready to go. One thing to keep in mind, I'm doing this video the easiest way possible, again with the minimal amount of tools, just kind of using what people might have at home. You can use better tools if you want, of course. Wire runs, I am running the wires as simple as possible. I am going to be zip tying some of the wires in certain spots, but certain things like running our tweeter wire up to the passenger side is going to run under the carpet and then come up under here and go across. Of course, you are welcome to install this however you see fit. If you want to pull the entire carpet up and you want to zip tie everything up and follow factory wire runs, you can definitely do that. That's what we would normally do in our shop on a daily install. But again, this was designed for the DIY at home in your garage and still get you car audio aftermarket shop quality system. Okay, so the first set of wires we're going to start with are our tweeter cables here. So we have 2 sets of wires, one for the left, one for the right, and everything will be labeled on here. So if we open up some of these wires, we're going to look at these ends here, and then it will be labeled R for right, L for left. I don't know if you can see that light, but essentially they are labeled for left and right. Once you get your kit and you look at everything and you kind of put it all together before you install it in the vehicle, you'll notice that the plugs only go one way. So on one end we have a male plug, and on the opposite end we have a female plug, and coming out of the amplifier is a female plug, so this will plug in there. So you can't mix it up because it'll only plug in one way. So this side will go to the amp, and we'll probably have it labeled 2 amp or whatever to make it a little easier. But those are the tweeter cables, and then we also have our ground cable here. So we have our ground cable, so we have a ring terminal and then wire ferrule that goes into the amplifier there. It's highly, highly, highly recommended that you do sand a spot on the vehicle for your ground. You want a clean, unpainted surface to get the best current transfer. So we always recommend sanding down the metal in that spot. If you're uncomfortable sanding the vehicle, totally understand. It's under the carpet. There's really no moisture. There's really nothing to worry about as far as rust. If you feel like it, you can always spot paint over it just to seal the metal up. But basically what we do is I included a little sandpaper pad in the kit, so you can use this to sand it down. And what we're going to do is, we had our 2 bolts where our JBL amp was bolted. We're just going to use this hole here, the hole closest to the inside of the vehicle. We're just going to sand that down a little bit, and that's going to be our ground spot for our amplifier. So we just got our sandpaper. If you have a wire brush on a drill, that's what we normally use, but I understand not everybody has access to that kind of stuff. So again, we want to make this as easy as possible with the least amount of tools, stuff that you kind of just have at home, hopefully. So not everybody has sandpaper, so instead of making you go to the hardware store, we'll just throw some sandpaper in for you. So we'll just give it a quick sand. You don't gotta go super crazy with it. If you can see there, we just got a clean surface now, no paint. So again, what you can do if you're worried about that, tape up your carpet a little bit. We're gonna bolt this guy down, and then you can just spray some, if you're gonna do that, I would use like some etching primer or something that's good for bare metal. You can just spray it over real quick, and then that'll catch that. But I'll be honest, I've been doing this for over 20 years. We live in an area with a lot of humidity and a lot of moisture, and I've not had anything rust in that area. And again, we've been doing this for a really long time. So even without painting it, you are okay, unless you're gonna sink your car in a bunch of water, then well, that's a different story. So we got our ground. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna feed our ground cable. So our ground and our power cables are gonna run through here and come out underneath this vent, because this is where the amp sits with our power and ground. So we're gonna run that guy that way, and then we're also gonna come back in later and do our power cable. But basically we can just feed it under here, feed it into that area, get your hand under here, and you can kind of feel that cable. And that's what we got there. And we have our ground. Don't worry about putting it down yet and bolting it, because we're going to put our amp plate back over it. So we're just getting our wire in that spot. If you're worried about it sliding around or whatever, you can just kind of throw this bolt back there for now, just to kind of hold it in place. And then from there, we got our tweeter cables. So I have left, which is driver's side. And what we're going to do is from this area here, which I guess we can't really see in the video. Let's see if I can move you guys over here. Okay, cool. So from this side of the vehicle, we're just gonna feed this wire up and through here. We can go under this carpet and just pass that through there. And we do want our tweeter wires to come right out in this area. You only need about 6 inches or so of slack, if that, because everything's pretty close in there. So we'll run that, and then we can follow up along this end and these plastic clips here. What I would recommend is don't zip tie anything up yet. Once you get all the wire runs in and then you get your amp in place, then you'll kind of know where your slack needs to be. From there, you can zip tie up and get it all solid if you prefer to do that. And that way you're not having to unclip zip ties if you zip tied it up and you don't have enough slack on it. So tweeter wire there, and then we'll go on. Okay, now we move on to the passenger side tweeter cable, and what we're going to do from there is find the right cable first. Let's see here. Okay, let's get that out of the way. All right, so we are going to run the end that plugs into the tweeter, so the side that's going to go up towards the dash, we're going to run that through this way. Again, we're going to go under the carpet here, and then we're going to come up here. The center console is super flimsy. I mean, again, these plastics are just very, very thin, and they're very flimsy, so they're easy to kind of work around when you're doing an install. Carpet's also very thin. There's not a lot of padding or anything, so it's easy to move around. So what we'll do is we'll run it up the carpet, and once you get your hand under here, because it's so thin, you can feel where the carpet ends right here, and you can kind of grab on it and pull it out, so we can get the carpet out so we can pull the cables. So basically we'll just get our hand in there, and we can kind of feel where that carpet is. And I mean, that's how thin this carpet is and how easy everything just pulls out in this car. So we're gonna feed this wire through here. You can get your hand in here and just kind of reach in and pull that tweeter wire out. So that is that. And then again, we're going to leave about 6 inches or so of slack. And then now, again, it's totally up to you how you want to do this install. You can go full on with it, and you can remove the center console, and you can tuck the wire up and zip tie it to everything if you feel like you want to do that and get a super clean install. Or you can do it this way, which will save you time and still get you a really good install and still get you where you need to go without taking apart a million different things. So once we get to that point there, we can actually tuck the carpet back in. So we can tuck that guy back in there. And you can kind of feel that it's snug in there. And then this wire, we're basically just gonna go up under the plastic panel here, and you can kind of feel it up in there. And then we'll run it around a little bit more to get it snug from like falling out or anything. So we'll get it tucked in there once we get more to the front of the car. So we have that guy there. So now we have our tweeter cables, we have our ground cable. Next we're gonna do our power, but we're gonna start at the back of the car and work our way forward when we do that. Okay, so now we're gonna do our wire run for our battery as our power for the amplifier. And if you have the subwoofer option, then you're also gonna run the subwoofer cable with it as well. So just basically follow how we're doing this power cable and add that extra wire in with it when you're running it. So battery, we're gonna pop our battery cover off. We'll just push this tab in and lift off when you get there. So once we get that off, you're gonna see there's a couple different bolts on here. There's really only one place to get your power at on the battery. There's a lot of options, but you got to be very careful with it because a lot of them are going to pull power through the fusing that's built into the terminals. So I've seen it all over the place on Facebook and the forums and whatnot, and people are saying get it here, get it there. So if you look on the side here, there's a stud. Don't get it there, because if you get it here, you're essentially pulling power through the fusing that's right here. There's a fuse on the side of this that's not really visible, but you don't want to pull extra current through that fuse, because if you blow it, you're basically killing all the power to the car. You also don't want to catch anything on this side down here, because we have fusing on the top. There is a jumper underneath the seat where I've seen people say get it there, but you don't want to do that either, because that's fed by these cables which run up through this main fuse. So again, you don't want to add extra load to the factory fuses, because these fuses here are technically not replaceable. You got to replace this whole assembly. So don't mess with that. You don't want to screw with that. This guy here is the spot you want to catch it at, because you're coming directly from the battery terminal right through here before any of the fuses. So that's a 12mm nut. We just loosen that guy up, put the ring down, tighten it back down. We're not going to do that yet because we don't want to put power through the wire. What we're going to do is mount our fuse holder. So let's get that out of the way there. So with our wire, we do have a mounting plate and a fuse holder. It's ready to go for you guys. So we include the bolt with it. We include the washer. And the way we do these is we have T-nuts on the back, so it gives us metal thread to thread into. So we have better serviceability, and we're not just stripping out plastic when we do this. So where we're gonna mount that is right behind the battery. There's this little flange that sticks up off of the floor. There's 3 holes in it. The center hole is a bigger hole. That's the hole that we're gonna use. So let's see if, all right, that's a little better. So essentially this guy's just gonna go back here, and we're gonna go underneath, not on top. So we're gonna go under, and you can see where the thread is, and we're just gonna pop this guy on here. All right, and then we also used 10mm bolts on that, so you don't have to use a bunch of different sockets. You're basically just gonna get your 10mm, tighten that guy down, and it'll be snug. You don't gotta worry about it moving anywhere. And then from here, we have our ring terminal, and that'll basically just come up this way here. Again, I'm not gonna hook it up right now because we have the fuse already installed in here. So if you hook this up to your battery, you're gonna have a live wire on the end, and that's like a big no-no. So we're gonna do that last. So we got our fuse here. From here, we're gonna run our power cable underneath the seat. All right, so there is a factory harness that runs right here. So we're just gonna take this guy, and we're just gonna slide it underneath here for now. Again, don't zip tie anything up yet. We want to make sure that we have enough slack in the wire before we start zip tying things up, because we don't want to tighten it too much and then not have room. So we're just going to leave that guy, but it's basically the way your wire is going to run. There's nothing here when the panels go back in, and I didn't show the video of that, but it's literally just lifting out the foam piece. So that guy will run back there safely. It's not going to be bothered by anything. It's not going to get smashed, not going to get pinched or anything. And then we're just gonna follow that factory harness this way. So from here, we'll go in the car, and then we can run that power cable forward. Okay, so we're back in the car. We got our seat tilted back, so we'll just move this guy up for now. So we're out of the way. So now we can see where our power cable came underneath the seat. So we got our fuse holder mounted, so we don't got to worry about pulling everything through. So if you stick your hand under here, you can feel where that factory harness runs right under the seat. So we're just gonna follow that. We'll just leave this guy here. These plastic panels on the side, again, super flimsy car, so we don't gotta worry about unbolting a million things. What we can do is just tuck this guy under here for now. We can just follow it up, go over that guy there, and then you'll feel there's a space back here. It's kind of hard to see because it's dark, but there's a space that's pretty open. You'll feel where the wire comes out. So again, you're running under the panel, but you're not pinching anything. It's free to move on this end. So again, leave it free. We'll come back and zip tie it later. And then from here, we're just gonna follow the harness. Follow the harness from here all the way forward. And then we'll run back under the carpet just like we did with all the wires. So it's pretty straightforward at this point of where you're gonna go with that power cable. Okay, so now we're back on the driver's side, up in the front of the vehicle. We have our power cable ran from the back forward. So when you get to here, basically where the B pillar is, you have your seatbelt assembly, your seatbelt. There's a couple different ways you can do it. Again, this is all preference. It's all completely up to you guys on how you want to do this. You can just run it basically just like this. That's not the seatbelt, that's just a tab. You can run it this way, your panel will go back over it, and you're fine, it's out of the way. If you want to be super crazy about it, you can actually open up this plastic loom, put the wire in it, and run it forward. That's how I have it in my GR, but again, preference. You can also pull the carpet back, and you can slide it down behind the carpet. The seat, because we don't take the seat all the way out, the seat is a little in the way. You just got to work around it. It's not bad. You can definitely take your seat out if you want, but that's just more work, and then that's just more risk you have of scratching your door jamb when you pull the seat out. So it's not really necessary. Some people want to do it. That's totally up to you guys. So that wire will run this way, and then we'll follow here, come back out where the rest of the factory wiring is. Okay, so now that we got everything here, we're going to get ready to put the JBL amp back in and put our new amplifier in. So first thing we're going to want to do is put the JBL amp in. So we get back here, we can see we have our ring terminal for our ground. You need to make sure that this goes between the body of the car, which is our sanded surface, and the JBL amp bracket. So it's going to sit like this. You do not want to put it on top like that. We need this to have direct contact with metal. So we want to go that way. So we're going to take our two 10 mils, put them back in. We don't need to go super tight with it right now. We just want to hold it so that the JBL amp doesn't move everywhere. So once we got that in, we are going to take our amplifier, which is already mounted on our plate, and we're going to get that guy in here. So we have our Audison amplifier mounted on our plate. We use 1/4 inch HDPE, so it's solid, it's rigid, it's not going to have any crumbling, it's not going to fall apart because we're not using wood. So and we're not using metal as well. I tend to not like to use metal for things like this at times. Plastic's a little bit lighter, less conductive in case there's any issues. So we have our T-nuts on the back for serviceability, so if we ever need to take this amplifier out, we're not stripping out plastic. So we are going to take this guy and drop this in here. And essentially what we're going to do first is hook up our power and ground. So when you look at the amplifier, let's pull this out here. So we have, let's do this. All right. So we have 12 volt and we have ground, which you can see there. 12 volt, of course, is our power from the battery. Ground is ground. You don't want to mix those up. And what we're going to do is use the Allen key that comes with it. We're going to loosen this guy up. We're not trying to take it all the way out. If you look in the hole where the wire goes, you'll see where the screw actually moves in and out, and you'll see what your space is. So we'll do that. And then now we're going to take our power and ground. So we'll take our ground first, and we'll slide that guy in. Okay, and we'll go ahead and tighten that down. You don't need to go crazy tight with it. You just need to get it in there. So let's see, feel it snug up. Just give it like a good quarter turn and you'll be good. And then we'll do our power. Okay. Tighten this guy up. If you find that it's too hard to turn this Allen key with the long way sticking out and the short end here, you can flip it and use the long end to get you a little bit more leverage if you want to tighten it a little bit more. So we got that in. So now we can slide this guy forward. And what we're going to do is, previously we had pulled the tab out, right? We had this brown clip that held the factory harness to that. We need to take it out anyway because we need more slack to move the harness around. But we're going to use that factory hole where that clip was to bolt the plate down. So the plate's going to slide underneath this JBL amp. And we're going to line that guy up pretty close. Okay. And then we're going to take the supplied bolt. Sorry, trying to do this with one hand's not fun. So we're going to take the bolt that comes with it. It's a 10 mil, so everything's the same. Again, you don't need a million different sockets to do this. Try to make this as easy as possible for everybody to do. So we are just going to thread that guy on there. And then, let me find. All right, now we got our ratchet. Tighten that guy down. Don't have to go super tight with it yet because we want to get everything lined up nice before we make it super snug. So now that we have that, we're going to work with our wires and plugging everything in. We're going to grab our harness, which is this guy here. One thing to take note of, this is the level 1 kit. The level 1 kit uses the 8-channel, the C series, which is their more compact amplifier. So we have a lot more space here. We have a lot more space here. In the level 2 and the level 3 kit, it has the M series amplifiers, which are a little bit bigger. So when you put this in, it's gonna sit probably about here versus here. So don't be alarmed if you watch this video and you're like, wow, I have so much room in the video, but in mine, it sits super close. Because the M series is a bigger amp, and we'll actually show you that because the level 2 is slightly different, and we'll go ahead and move on to that after this. But once we have this guy bolted in, we're good. We can take our harnesses and start plugging stuff in. So that's the easiest part. We are going to take, let's see here, let's move that out of the way. So we can take this plug here, which only goes in one spot on the amplifier. We'll take that guy and plug that in. You hear that little click? That's our speaker outputs. And then we have this plug here. So there is one thing that you're gonna need to take note of, and I guess I should have showed you that first, but when you look at the amplifier, there's a couple plugs on the front here. There's a couple slots that line up with this. There's 2 separate slots that this plug can plug into. One is labeled speaker in, and one is labeled pre-in. You want to put this in the speaker in, not pre-in. So again, speaker in is where this guy needs to plug into. We'll just get that there, plug that in, so we're nice and good. So the pre-in is the one closest to this. It is labeled pre-in. I'm sorry. Speaker in is the closest one to this. It's labeled speaker in. That's the one you want to use. The one that's furthest on this side says pre-in. Do not plug it in there. Hopefully that's clear. That's what you need to do there. And then from here, we are going to take the JBL plug and we're going to plug this in. So the way that that works is we have this little black gate again. We want to make sure it's open. If for some reason it got closed in the process of moving wires around, if it's in this position, you want to just pull it back until you hear that click and open it up. And then we're going to take this end and we're going to plug it in. So we're going to line that guy up, give it a little bit of a push. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get it in there, and that'll click, and then you're in. You want to make sure you're snug, so that'll feed into there. This can actually just tuck under the JBL amp, so it's out of the way. And then we're going to take this plug, again, make sure that gate is open, and then we're going to take it and plug it back into the JBL amp. Simple. We got all that there, we're plugged in, and then we can take our other plug for the JBL amp and plug that guy back in there. So with everything plugged in, what that leaves us with is our tweeter outputs. So it is labeled tweeters, which you probably can't see because this light's so bright, but it's the only wire coming out of there is labeled tweeters. And then it's also labeled L and R, which will correspond with these guys labeled L and R. So we are just going to follow that, plug those guys in. And you can take this and tuck it, zip tie it, however you prefer. So if we want to slide that in there, and then we can take some zip ties, zip tie all of our wiring up. And that's basically everything you need to install the amplifier DSP portion of the level 1 kit. You can clean these wires up in whichever way you feel is best. You can get it all nice, however you want to do that. Once we have that there, we can take our JBL, well, actually we can tighten everything back up. So let's do that. Tighten that back up. Okay. And then we can go, and from here we can put our JBL amp cover back over it. Just click that guy back on and you are basically set with that. So this again is the level 1 DSP amplifier kit. That's everything you need to do. Install it and get it under the seat, get it all plugged in. The only thing that we did not do from here is go back and hook the power to the battery, which we will do. And then from here we have our speaker install. This is the level 2 amplifier kit. So the level 2 is going to be a little different from the level 1 and the level 3. Difference being the level 2 kit uses the passive crossovers that come with the Morel speakers, which are basically these guys here. So this is something extra that we need to install with this kit. We tried to make it as simple as possible so that you guys don't have to strip any wires or crimp any wires or do anything. We made it so that all you have to do is basically plug it in and mount it. So coming out of there, we have all of our harnesses, just like we had with the level 1 kit. So that's going to plug in just like the level 1 kit will do. Everything will plug into its appropriate wiring. So I'm not going to plug everything in because I'm just going to show you guys how this mounts. So again, you would take it, plug everything in just like you would with the level 1 kit. Hopefully that translates. And once you have everything plugged in, what you're going to do is take this plate. There's 2 holes on the plate that line up with the front holes on the amplifier. Right now, the front holes are not screwed down. The back 2 are. So what we're going to do is once we have everything plugged in, we're going to take this guy and we're going to lay this right on top of the amp, and we're going to line that up with those holes. And then we're going to take these longer screws that come with it. We're going to slide that guy down on there, and then we're going to tighten that down. So we're going to take our screwdriver and we're going to tighten these down, essentially mounting the crossover plate to the amplifier plate with the amplifier all in one package. There is one thing to take note of that. Depending on how you sit with your seat, let me just move this here. So the GR front seat on the driver's side has adjustable height, right? We can move it up and down. I tried to get it to where this wouldn't be an issue. It is very close. You could probably get away without doing this, but it is something that I do recommend you do just in case. So we can unclip this harness here. and we can unclip this guy here. And basically, there's a little tab on the back that you'll pull and slide it out. So we're gonna pull that out, and then we're actually gonna move it up into here. And then we'll have, you can zip tie it up or whatever out of the way if you're worried about it moving around. And then that'll give us enough clearance. You can even do that with the airbag harness as well. Just move those two up there, and I'll do that right now and show you guys what that looks like when you're done. Okay, so we have our two plugs unplugged, our airbag, and then our, assuming this is power and stuff for some of the sensors in the seats. So we have them unplugged, and then the way that you unclip it from this plastic here is you can come from the back side with the flathead screwdriver and come up in through here, and then you can pop that clip that retains these two on there, and then you can pull those guys out. And then from there, we basically take them and we'll feed them up in here. It's perfectly safe to do this. There is absolutely no issue doing this. It's not gonna pinch any wires. It's not gonna cause any problems with sensors or anything. And then we're gonna move that, and we're gonna plug these guys up in there. And that just gives us a little bit of extra space down there, so we don't have to worry about hitting these guys. Again, it clears as is. Even with the seat all the way down, it just clears it. But for me, for peace of mind, I would move it up. Last thing you want to do is slide your seat back and forth and snag something or snag a harness. So we want to move that up there just for peace of mind. Unless you sit with the seat super high, but again, I still recommend doing this. And then it's pretty snug once you get it in there. It's really not going to go anywhere, but if you want to add a zip tie or two, you can. And then that'll get all of that there. Also, the way that this airbag plug unplugs, so this white tab here you want to hold down, and then you're gonna grab this portion and slide it back. I don't know if I can get that here or not. Let's see if I can get this for you guys. Okay, so we're gonna pull this white tab, hold it down, and then we're gonna grab this portion of it and slide it forward. Oh my god, I'm going the wrong way. Yikes. Okay, and then that'll unclip. So let's try that again. So hold that down, and then we'll slide this guy forward. I'll hold it down again, and it'll pop out. If you just hold it once and slide this forward, it's only gonna go so far and it's not gonna come out. So you wanna push it down again, and then you can slide it all the way up. So just remember, you basically gotta do it twice. And that'll get that airbag plug out. Okay, and that's what it looks like when everything is moved up into here. And now we have an extra, almost an inch of clearance underneath. And I mean, it's not gonna go anywhere. It's not gonna pinch anything. There's still a lot more play up here. So there's a lot of space, and I don't know why Toyota did it like that, but I mean, I get it, but it could have been a lot better. So we'll just do that, and then we'll be good and won't be an issue. So again, the plate sits over the holes for the amplifier, and then you use the included screws to screw that guy down once everything is plugged in. Everything plugs in super simple, super easy. It's pretty straightforward. So just follow the way the level 1 kit was plugged in. You're just gonna do the same thing with this guy here. You're just utilizing the passive crossovers. And this is basically how it'll come. We're missing 2 wires on it right now because we need to put the other wires on. And then essentially everything will just plug in just like it did with the level 1 system. So super straightforward. The level 5 does have, the level 2 with the 5 channel does have the subwoofer. So you will have that additional cable that will plug in and run to the back. So that's basically the difference between doing the level 2 versus a level 1 or a level 3, because the level 3 is a 12 channel. We don't need those passive crossovers. So all right, so once we have everything hooked up under the seat, we have our power cable hooked up to our amplifier. Basically, the last thing we're going to do is hook up our power cable to our battery. So again, we're going to use this stud here. It is a 12 mil. I'm just going to use my same 1/4 inch ratchet. Should be good enough to break this guy loose. And we'll just pop that there. And we'll just loosen that up by hand. All right, and then we are going to take our ring terminal, and we're going to slap that guy on there. The ring terminal does, if you can really tell, let's see here. it's flat on one end and then it kind of dips up on one end. So you want to make sure the flat side is down. We'll just bolt that guy on there, and we'll just put that back on and tighten this down. A word of advice: if you are using a ratchet that is completely metal and it doesn't have any rubber or plastic handle, when you are loosening and tightening the positive for this, you want to be careful that when you're moving it, you don't let the metal contact this because it's bolted to the car. There may not be any or enough continuity to actually do anything, but just a word of advice, be careful with that. So we got that guy bolted there, and we will put our battery cover back on, and that is it. And we can put our foam back in and put our floor back in, and that is everything we need there as far as hooking up our battery. If for some reason you ever noticed one day that you have no audio and you look under the seat, there's a blue light on the amplifier. If the blue light's not on, then more than likely it's not getting power. That could mean you possibly blew the fuse. And to change the fuse, it's pretty simple. We have our fuse holder here. I didn't bolt it down. It's super tight yet, so we'll bolt that down and make that solid. But what we're gonna do is we'll pop this cover off. There's basically little gaps on the side, so you can just pop that guy out there. And then there's two little Allen heads. We'll just take those two screws out. The fuse will come out and a new one will go in. That's pretty straightforward there. Yeah, that's all you'll really need to hook your power up. Okay, so now we're gonna do the speaker install, which again is pretty straightforward. There's a couple things we need to take off so we can get the screws. If you haven't already figured out how to do this, basically this front trim piece pops off. Again, if you got fingernails, you can kind of just get in there and pull that guy out. If not, there is, I believe there was a section somewhere down here. There's a little slot where you can stick the screwdriver in. But basically, you want to just pop that guy off. On the top, there is a retaining strap, I guess, that holds it in place. So you see this little white strap here. So just kind of move that out of the way, and then you're fine. And then we have two Phillips screws there, and then there's also one up here. So we can take our little flathead and we can pop this out here. Most cars are going to be different. This customer has the LED add-on, so that's in the way in this vehicle, but for the most part you guys won't have to deal with that unless you have that. And then the window switches pop right up, so again we can use our little flathead. There's a clip back here, so we can just get under there, lift it up so we can pop that guy out. That pops up, and then the rest will just pop up, and we'll unplug the harness, and then we can get to the screws. So you can definitely use a screw gun, but I'm trying to do this again as simple as possible. Like most guys maybe won't have certain power tools, so you want to take the window switch out before you take this screw out. It just makes it way easier because you can actually look down in the hole and see where the screw is, and then you can get your finger in there and pull the screw out. So screw this top one here. Out, and then I like to just pop one clip just to hold that back in place for now, and then we're going to pull the panel off. So we have clips all the way around. If you've taken off door panels before, most older vehicles you would pop the bottoms and then the top would slide up. In the case of a Corolla, everything is clips, it all just pulls forward. So we'll find a spot, usually down here there's a little bit of a gap where you can get your finger. We'll just get in there, and then we'll just sharply pull towards us, and that pops the clips. And then you want to get your hands up the sides, pop it and pop it. And then if you roll your window down, it does make it a little easier to get your hand back in here, but basically we just want to get in there and pop those clips forward, and that takes it out. So now we have the door panel loose. There are two cables back here for the window, or not the window, but the door lock and the door handle. And Let's see if that's not really visible in the video, but let's see if I can get you guys on there. Okay, so we got our panel loose, and now we're looking in the back where we have these two clips, or the two cables, and they're super easy to remove. They basically slide up. So if you get your hand behind it and you pull away from the door panel, pull towards the door, that just pops that guy up, and then it just slides out. There's like a little hole and a little notch that it goes into. That'll be the same thing. I'll show you how to reinstall that when we get there. And then from here we can pull our panel out of the way. Again, this customer has that LED door cup light, so he has this extra harness in here. Let's see if I can just unplug that. All right, so we can get that out of the way. Normally you won't have to do that. Your panel will just come off, and from here we can unplug our speaker, and we can unscrew our speaker and put the new one on, and we'll get there. Okay, so we have the OEM speaker removed. Now we have the new speaker that's going to go in, and even though the shape looks the same all the way around as far as the mount is concerned, it is not the same all the way around. So you want to make sure you have it lined up properly. So right now we're off there, but we're good here, and then there's also another tab on the bottom which we're off from. So we're going to turn this guy. Let's try that way. So when you have it in the right spot, you'll have that lined up there. We'll have that lined up there, and then the bottom will be lined up as well. And then we can put our screws in, and then our speaker will be mounted. All right, so we have our speaker in. I don't have it tightened right now, but I just put the screws in just to make sure everything lines up before we tighten it down. So we have everything there. Just because the Morel logo might be upside down or tilted one way, it doesn't mean it's installed the wrong way. Actually, the logo is never going to be straight up and down. The reason for that is when we do these with the mounts, we want the actual terminal on the back of the speaker to be as close to this as possible, so the wire just goes straight through rather than having it turned the other way and then the wire runs all the way around and comes out. So we do that just to make the installation cleaner and not have a bunch of wire in the door flapping around. So and that's not something that you're going to see with the door panel, but I know some people have asked about the logo layout and not being straight up and down, and that's basically why we do that there. So we can tighten this up now, and we can plug our speaker in, and then we're basically good to go and put the door panel back on. Yeah, that's okay. Do that, and then let's see here. So what we also include in the kit are these foam strips, and what we use that for is to wrap around the plug just to keep plastic from flapping around on metal or flapping around on your door panel. So we'll get that on there, and then we'll come back to putting the door panel on. Okay, so we have our speaker tightened up, we have everything plugged in, we have our foam covering that so we don't get any rattle there. And then now we can go ahead and reinstall the panel. And let's go and get this guy on here. Just hold that in place for now. Oh shoot, he's not. Okay. So what I like to do just to kind of hold the panel in place while I'm working and putting the cables back in is just kind of line up some of the bottom clips and just to kind of hold it in place there. So what we're gonna do is I'll show you guys how the cables go back in. So if you can see on there is a slot where this guy locks in. Okay, so that locks into there. There's a groove where the cable can slide into, and then that just clips back in there, and the top one is going to be the same. Top one, this lock mechanism is really free, so you want to make sure it's pointed back that way, and then we can slide that guy in there and clip that back on. So you're going to make sure the green is on the bottom, the white is on the top. If you do it backwards, your door handle and your lock mechanism are going to be backwards. So, and from here we can clip everything back in. Okay, so when it comes to doing the rear speaker install, like I had mentioned in the front speaker install video, it's essentially the same exact thing in the rear as it is in the front. The only difference is we don't have that door handle and trim. What we do have is this door handle here. So this trim piece with the cup holder and this will pop off. Let's see if I can do this here. So we're gonna basically the same as what we did with the front. We'll just pop that guy a little bit. Doesn't take a lot of pressure because this is very flimsy. That guy will pop right out. And we just unplug that, and then we have our 2 screws there. We still have our 1 screw here. Door panel pulls off. We have the same cables that comes off, and then you just unscrew the speaker, unplug it, plug the new one in, screw it back in, and reverse the process. So I'm not going to make a full video because it's basically the same thing. This is the only difference here, is popping that cover off and getting to those 2 screws. It's just slightly different in the rear, but basically the same thing. So